Welcome, future and current Warhammer scholars. This is a series where I, an ignorant noob, reads lore. And today we are covering the Necrons. I know a little bit about the orcs, and I know a little bit about the Tyranids. I know almost nothing about the Necrons. So I'm hyped to get into this. I'm primarily just reading off of the wiki. If you guys have any book suggestions, let me know, but let's get started. The Necrons are a mysterious xenospecies of humanoid, robotic, skeletal warriors that have lain dormant in their stasis tombs for more than 60 million Terran years, though they have begun to awaken at last. They are the soulless creations, former servants and now captors of the ancient Catan, the terrible star gods of Aldari myth. Whoa, I mean, those were some things that I have no idea what they mean. Captors of the ancient Catan, the terrible star gods of Aldari myth. Sounds pretty epic, but they've laid dormant for more than 60 million Terran years. Holy crap. The Necrons are ancient beyond reckoning, predating even the birth of the Aldari. At long last, however, they are beginning to awaken from their tomb worlds, for the galaxy is ripe for conquest and the restoration of the Necron Empire since the disappearance of the Old Ones more than 60 million standard years ago. The Necrons are completely robotic humanoid species whose technological prowess is probably unmatched by any other intelligent species of the galaxy. Yet, out of a desire for vengeance against the more fortunate, long-lived ancient Xenos people called the Old Ones, and the trickery of the godlike intelligences known as the Catan, the Necrons shed their original organic forms and lost all forms of compassion and empathy. Wow. Okay, so they used to be they basically transferred their consciousness into computers. Okay, they became robots. What was that movie that did that? I can't remember. Let's move on. They have become instead ruthless, undying killing machines who are determined to exert their mastery over the galaxy once more. Across the galaxy, this ancient and terrible species is stirring back to life. Entombed in stasis crypts for millions of Terran years, they have slumbered through the eons, waiting for the galaxy to heal from the wounds of a long and bloody war. Now, after 60 million standard years of dormancy, a great purpose begins. On desolate worlds thought long bereft of all life, ancient machineries wake into grim purpose, commencing the slow process of revivification that will see those entombed within freed. That's some weird wording. That will see those entombed within freed to stride across the stars once again. The unstoppable, undying Necron legions are rising. Let the galaxy beware. Wow. Okay, I'm seeing a picture of one of the Necrons. They look a lot like General Grievous, and it turns out that it seems like they kind of are like General Grievous, just get rid of the rest of the living bits. All Necrons, from the lowliest of warriors to the most regal of lords, are driven by one ultimate goal: to restore their ancient ruling dynasties to glory, and to bring the galaxy under their rule once more, as it was in ancient days. Such was the edict long ago encoded into the Necrons' minds, and it is a command so fundamental to their being that it cannot be denied. Yet it is no small task, for the Necrons are awakening from their tomb worlds to find the galaxy of the 41st millennium, as recorded by the Imperial calendar, much changed. Many tomb worlds are no more, destroyed by cosmic disaster or alien invasion. Others are damaged, their entombed legions afflicted by slow madness or worn to dust by entropy's irresistible onset. Degenerate alien species squat amongst the ruins of those Necron tomb worlds that remain, little aware of the greatness they defile with their upstart presence. Yet there is no salvation to be found in such ignorance. The undying have come to reclaim their land, and the living shall be swept aside. Yet if Necrons have been destroyed by the passage of eternity, countless billions more remain to see their dominion reborn. They are not creatures of flesh and blood, these Necron, but android warriors whose immortal forms are forged from living metal. As such, they are almost impervious to destruction, and their mechanical bodies are swift to heal even the gravest wounds. Given time, severed limbs reattach, armored plating reknits, and shattered mechanical organs are rebuilt. The only way then to assure a Necron's destruction is to overwhelm its ability to self-repair, to inflict such massive damage that its ancient regenerative systems cannot keep pace. Even then, should irreparable damage occur, the Necron will often simply phase out, an automated Viridian teleportation beam, returning it to the safety of the stasis crypts, where it remains in storage until such a time as repairs can be carried out. The sciences by which such feats are achieved remain a mystery to outsiders, for the Necrons do not share their secrets with lesser species, and have set contingencies to prevent their supreme technologies from falling into the wrong hands. Should a fallen Necron warrior fail to phase out, it self-destructs and is consumed in a blaze of emerald light. Outwardly, this appears little different to the glow of teleportation, leaving the foe to wonder whether the Necron has finally been destroyed, or has merely retreated to its tomb. Victory over the Necrons is therefore always a tenuous thing, and a hard-won battle grants little surely of ultimate victory. For the Necrons, defeats are minor inconveniences, the preludes to future triumphs, nothing more. Immortality has brought patience. The perils that the Necrons survived in ancient times carry the lesson their people can overcome any opposition, if they have but the will to try, and if the Necrons possess only a single trait, it is a will as unbending as adamantium. Is adamantium a thing in this universe? Is that a real thing? I didn't think it was a real substance. You know, whoever wrote this wiki, are they just a nerd about X-Men? I mean, I am too, but anyways. Only one hope can now preserve the other intelligent species of the galaxy from the Necrons' advance, from the endless legions of silent and deathless warriors rising from long forgotten tombs. If the Necrons can be prevented from waking to their full glory, if the scattered tomb worlds can be prevented from unifying, then there is a chance of survival. If not, then the great powers of the galaxy will surely fall, and the Necrons shall rule supreme for all eternity, undying, cruel, and utterly implacable. Wow, okay. That's a lot to take in. It sounds like you can't stop the Necrons then. It just sounds like eventually they're going to come back in full force, and then I don't know. I mean, if the humans are still around, okay, but it seems like it would end up being a battle between just the infinite orcs and and the Necrons. I mean, I don't know. And then you just have a destroyed universe at that point. Interesting. These are pretty tough enemies for the Imperium to be going against. I have to say that much. Okay, so the Necro, this they did mention the Catan, the star gods. Uh, so I'm gonna read a little bit about the Catan just to try to see how they, play into the story. The birth of the entities called the Catan, and later known as the star gods, occurred at the same time as the moment of creation itself. as they formed from the vast incestate. Incestate? Energies first unleashed by that churning mass of cataclysmic force. In that anarchic interweaving of matter and energy, the sea of stars began to swirl in existence, and for an eon the universe was nothing more than hot hydrogen gas and light elemental dust, ruled over by the gravitic forces of billions of newborn suns. Long before the first planets had formed and cooled, the very first truly self-aware beings emerged into the universe, their thoughts encased within the lines of force produced by the plasma and electromagnetic flares of the stars themselves. In later times, these entities would become known as the Catan by the Necrons, but early in their existence, they were nothing like the malevolent beings they would eventually become. They were little more than monstrous energy parasites that suckled upon the star energies of the stars, the solar energies of the stars that had brought them into existence, shortening the lives of otherwise main sequence stars by millions of standard years. In time, these star vampires learned to move along the lines of the universe's electromagnetic flux, leaving their birthplaces to drift through the cosmic ether to new stellar feeding grounds and begin their cycle of stellar destruction once more. Beings of pure energy, they paid no mind to the hunks of solid matter they passed in the vacuum of space. The blazing geothermal fires and weak geomagnetic fields of these nascent planets insufficient to be worth feeding even their ravenous hunger. Wow, okay, the star gods. I'm very curious how they actually play into the story because they just sound like ancient aliens, but they become malevolent beings. Uh, Alright, crazy. How long did they rule? Where did they go? Questions for later. Okay, so let's move on to who the Necron were before they shed their mortal coil. The humanoid species that would become the Necrons began their existence under a fearsome, scourging star in the far reaches of the galaxy, known as the Halo Stars region. Billions of standard years before humanity evolved on old Earth, assailed at every moment by solar winds and intense radiation storms, the flesh and blood species known as the Necrontyr became a morbid people whose precarious lifespans were riven by constant loss. What little information the Imperium of Man has recovered on the Necrontyr tells that their lives were short and uncertain, their bodies blighted and consumed at an early age by terrible cancers and other illnesses linked to the high levels of ionizing radiation given off by their sun. Necron tier cities were built in anticipation of their inhabitants' early demise, as the living were only brief residents scratching their daily livelihoods in the shadow of the vast sepulchres and tombs of their ancestors. Likewise, their ruling dynasties were found on the anticipation of an early death, and the living were thought of as no more than temporary residents hurrying through the more permanent and lasting structures raised to honor the dead. On the Necrontyr homeworld, the greatest monuments were always built for the dead, never the living. Wow. Okay, the Necrontyr and the Necron just got way more metal to me. Also, someone mentioned old Earth. What do you mean old Earth? What? There's an Earth 2? What's going on here? Well, I'm sure find out one day. Driven by necessity, the Necrontyr escaped their crucible prison and struck out for the stars, hopeful of carrying out an empire in which they could realize their species' freedom from the lethal energies of their birth star. Using stasis crypts and slow-moving antimatter powered torch. These are big words. This is getting tough. using stasis crypts and slow-moving antimatter-powered torch ships that were clad in the living metal known as necrodermis. That doesn't sound right. To resist the millennia-long journeys through the void, the Necrontyr began to colonize distant worlds. Wow, okay, so not adamantium, necrodermis. I still don't like saying that. But okay, they found a way to get away from their cancer world. That's good. Little by, well, not good for the humans later on. Little by little, the Necrontyr dynasty spread ever further until much of the ancient galaxy answered to their rule. From the earliest days, the rulers of individual Necrontyr dynasties were themselves governed by the Triarch, a council composed of three Necron dynasty monarchs known as the Pharaohs. The head of the Triarch was known as the Silent King, for he addressed his subjects only through the other two barons who ruled alongside him. A hereditary position in the uncertain lifespans of the Necrontyr ensured that the title of Silent King nonetheless passed from one royal dynasty to another many times. The final days of the Necrontyr Empire occurred during the reigns of the Sarikhan dynasty, the last of the Silent Kings. Wow. That seems like a terrible system, the Triarch, because if one leader is never, you know, talking to their actual subjects, what would stop the other two from just, killing them, taking over, and replacing him and pretending like, yeah, he's still telling us things. We killed him 5 years ago. It just doesn't seem like a very good system, but maybe they're different than human beings, because humans would do that. Maybe an alien species wouldn't. Sometime during their slow interstellar expansion, the Necron tier encountered. Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. The Necron tier. I've said it like 20 times now, but I'm getting paranoid that, someone's going to be like, you are saying it so wrong. I think I got it. The Necron tier encountered an ancient species far older than any other in existence in the known galaxy. These beings were the Old Ones, and they were absolute masters of forms of energy the Necrontyr could not even conceive of, yet alone wield. The Old Ones had long ago conquered the secrets of immortality, yet they refused to share the gift of eternal life with the Necrontyr, who yet bore the genetic curse of the bitter star they had been born under. The colonization of much of the galaxy by the reptilian mystics had been immeasurably swifter and more expansive than that of the Necrontyr because of their warp gates and mastery of the Immaterium. That, and the Old One's incredibly long, if not downright immortal lifespans, kindled a burning, jealous rage in the Necrontyr, which aided their culture spiritually, as much as physical cancers consumed their bodies. The Necrontyr were astonished to learn that another intelligent species enjoyed such long lives, while their own were cut so brutally short. But as time wore on, further strife came to the Necrontyr. Each dynasty sought to claim its own destiny, and soon the great houses were engaged in all-out conflicts known as the Wars of Secession. Had circumstances remained as they were for but a generation more, it is possible that the Necrontyr would have wiped themselves out, as so many species had before them, and shall do in the future. As their territory grew ever wider and more diverse, the unity that had made them strong was eroded. Bitter wars were waged as entire realms fought to win independence. Ultimately, the Triarch realized that the only hope for unity for their people lay in conflict with an eternal enemy, but there were few who could prove a credible threat to the technologically advanced Necron tier. Only the Old Ones were a prospective foe powerful enough to bind the feuding Necrontyr dynasties to a common cause. Such a war was simplicity itself to justify, What the Necron tear had ever rattled. What the what is that word? Rankled? Rankled. Okay, so I'm gonna call it here. Just the words are getting too difficult, and I'm re-listening to this recording, and I'm just like, oh, these pronunciations are just getting more and more painful to listen to. Just me butchering them. So I'm gonna re-record some of this and get it out. But I think we covered a lot. Loving the Necron. They're so awesome looking. I mean, I love the pyramids and the giant tombs flying through space. You know, they look goofy. And that's one reason I actually like them. And I really wasn't expecting to learn this much about the Necron before they became Necron. I think that's the most important starting spot, but really cool stuff. Loving it. There's mystery. Necron are awesome. I'm an orc boy, but Necrons are winning me over as they are a ridiculously cool threat and a massive one at that. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll catch you later.